All right, great. Now we're going to advance now to the Gratiot County teams. We have two big matchups. It's the Fulton Pirates and New Lothrop and Ithaca playing St. Charles. We're going to start off first with the Fulton team against a New Lothrop team. Pirates come in 6-4. They won last week in a great game, 7-6 over the Fowler Eagles. New Lothrop entering the game, still undefeated. Took it to the Ashley Bears in the second half especially, won 33-7. We're going to hear now from Coach Winkler, see what he thinks his guys need to do in order to be successful this week.
Like I said, they're one of those teams when you look at them on film, everybody, you're always looking for something that somebody else has exploited, things like that, and really nobody's exploited anything, and they've, had their way with teams and so on. So I guess our, main goal is to try to frustrate them a little bit.
All right, great. Thanks, Coach. Now we're going to take a look at three different factors that we feel will have the biggest impact on the game. So let's get started here on offense. Curtis, what do you got?
Offensively, I think the key for Fulton is to be getting a lead early in the game. Last week, New Lothrop's game against Ashley got up 6-0 on a 20-play drive that ate up almost the whole first quarter. That's exactly what they wanted to do. Got up on New Lothrop 6-0, which is actually the first time that New Lothrop has ever trailed this season, was when Ashley went up in that first half. Didn't exactly last, but I think Fulton's got to do something similar. They got to get up on them early.
I think Fulton needs to keep the ball. They need to keep their offense on the field, keeping the Lothrop's offense off the field. In the last couple weeks, Fulton's been playing tough. Their offense has been coming on. They need to stay on the field.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. Maintaining possession of the ball is going to be key for the Pirates. You talked about that last drive that Ashley had. First drive of the game, 20-play drive. That's a very impressive drive. I think the Fulton offense could be a little bit more developed, and it's definitely firing on all cylinders right now. That's going to be the biggest key for these guys, and that's exactly what quarterback Zach Baker believes will help give them the edge.
Just got to limit the big plays. I think probably everybody's talked about it, and they're potent offense, and we chew up the clock when we have the ball. I think we'll be fine.
All right, now we're going to move on to the other side of the ball. Take a look at the defense. Tom, what do you think the Pirates need to do?
I think the Pirates will do exactly what they've been doing in the last few games. They have to play tough defense. They have to tackle. As good as the Ashley Bears were, if they would have tackled their big running backs from the Lothrop, how you're supposed to tackle instead of up high, it might have been a different ballgame. I think that Fulton's defense, if they continue to do what they've been doing the last few games, tackling the proper way, they'll stop the big running backs from the Lothrop.
Yeah, I think defensively the key is when Fulton has a chance to get off the field, they have to get off the field. Those 3rd and 2s, those 3rd and 3s, they've got to get the stops. They've got to limit the number of times that New Lothrop touches the ball. When they got a chance to force them into a punt, they've got to capitalize on that. And I think that kind of starts with, we were talking earlier, their senior defensive lineman, Clayton Waldron. He kind of tends to come up with a big play when Fulton's defense needs it. He's going to have to do it, especially this week. If they're going to win, they got to get off the field.
Exactly, and part of that is going to be forcing the Hornet offense out of their comfort zone. Coach has talked about, like he said, they haven't been challenged by a lot of people. A lot of people haven't been able to exploit anything from them, but they have to make them feel uncertain on offense. A team that's scoring 48 points a game, they're putting up big plays. All right, now we're going to move on to that X factor in the game where we think that the matchup could be decided one way or the other.
In this game, for me, I think the X factor is actually on the sidelines, Coach Winkler. I think he's the X factor. The game plan that he's going to have going into this game, both offensively and defensively. Obviously, he's got a lot of experience in the regular season and in the playoffs. 74-19 overall record, 14-7 in the playoffs. So, like you said, he's been there. This team's been there. So I think it's the X factor is Coach Winkler and his game plan.
The other big key is when you get towns like Fulton, they live around football. They will have that field packed. The Lothrop's not going to know what happened when the Fulton Pirates and their fans come into that field. I think that when you have that much support behind you, that kind of motivates you a little bit more, and I think that that's going to be a big X factor. It might be at New Lothrop, but Fulton will outnumber the fans.
For me, the biggest thing, New Lothrop, very potent offense, putting up a lot of points. How do they finish a game? they haven't been challenged in any game this season. That's something that Fulton star running back Jared Barton noticed and thinks his team can take advantage of.
Well, I don't think they've played all 4 quarters the whole year, so I think we can wear them down a little. We've had to play 4 quarters since game 1, and we know how to win in the close games, and I don't know if they have the experience in that yet.
You know, and I think Barton has a great point here. The Hornets haven't been forced to close out a game all season. Fulton has had a bunch of close matchups. That could be a real big thing for this game this week. Now we're going to come through with our final scores and picks for the game.
I think New Lothrop wins. Like you mentioned, Fulton's been playing a lot of tough games. They've been playing a lot of close games. And I think it might be playing with their minds a little bit. Some of them admittedly, it's starting to wear on them a little bit. And I think it's going to kind of come to an end at this game. It's got to end at some point. And a team like New Lothrop, I think it might end Friday.
You know, as much as I hate to say it, I got to agree with Curtis. Like he said, starting to wear on the guys a little bit. And the Hornets are just a very, very solid team. We already talked about a terrible draw for Ashley last week. This is another really, really tough game for Fulton. It is starting to wear on a little bit, and I question whether or not they're satisfied. I know the coaches told me that they want to keep playing, they want to keep striving, but you know, they didn't even know if they were going to make the playoffs in the first place, and then they get a big win against Fowler. I'm wondering if they have anything else left in the tank. As much as I hate to say it, I have the Hornets taking the game 28-21.
Well, I hope I don't jinx them. You know, I haven't been a big Fulton fan all year long, but they're proving me wrong. And I hope they continue to prove me wrong. So, we're going with the Fulton Pirates. Moving on, in a close game, 10-7, decided by a field goal.
Okay. Yeah, I had the final score being 28-24, so I think we're all in agreement. It's going to be a close game. We go into our other county team here in the playoffs, Ithaca at 10-0 versus St. Charles at 7-3. The teams obviously met earlier this season. Jackets winning that, I believe it was 42-6 was the regular season score. But if anybody knows, it's different in the postseason. It's these two teams from what happened with them last year, and Coach Hesbrook knows that.
They know us and we know them. I don't think anybody's going to do a whole lot different, but they're just so physical. You know, they bring such physical play to the game, and it'll be an emotional game, and we're going to ask the kids to be sky high because they're going to have to be. They'll come in here hungry, real hungry.
Again, with the 3 different areas here, we'll start with offensively. What do you guys think is the key offensively for Ithaca going into this game?
Alex limiting his turnovers. I mean, it's hard to say this guy is a great quarterback, but you know, when you see he had 3 picks the game before, he had 2 fumbles this last game, but he still got up and threw for 11 for 16, 200 some yards. I mean, David Brown's never fumbled before. I mean, in this year, you know, Minyard had a fumble. We can't turn the ball over, and I think that's the factor on offense. So these guys got to core together like they have been, and bring it on. You know, it's going to be a close game. We flip-flopped with St. Charles last year. They're going to be ready for us. But the key on offense is Alex, the boys have to limit their turnovers.
I totally agree. I think that's going to play a huge part. Something else I saw in last week's game that I think they really need to focus on is offensive penalties. It's ridiculous for a team that's 10-0, such an accomplished team, to come into a game like this and get illegal motion penalties or get illegal formation penalties. That's just unacceptable. Yeah, and maybe that's just jitters for the first playoff game of the season. It was cold. Maybe that threw them off for their turnovers or for their penalties. I don't know. It's unacceptable. You know Coach Hesbrook knows that. You know the guys know that. Hopefully they can come into this game and fix that.
To me, the offensive key is the offensive line. Earlier in the season against St. Charles, Ithaca only rushed for 35 yards. Since then, they've been averaging 208 yards, so they've been stepping it up, getting back on the ground. I think they're going to have to do that against St. Charles, is go to the ground, because earlier in the season, Isnak threw for 360-some yards, I think it was. They're going to be focused on stopping that pass, so in order for Ithaca to win this game, they've got to do it on the ground, and that starts with the offensive line. And then on the other side of the ball, defensively, what's the key?
Keep doing what they've done all year long. The scores that the teams had against Ithaca, you know, a lot of it's been the second string, okay? And they've only given up 1 touchdown. So I think the defense is the key to this game. That if Ithaca can continue playing the defense they've been playing all year long, and how they played against St. Charles, you know, the last time, I don't think there's going to be much of a factor there.
The biggest thing I saw in last week's game was one of the simplest things on defense, tackling. they didn't tackle well at all. And I know Coach told me that the big attack running back for the Wolfpack was a quick guy, big guy, tough for them to tackle. It was pretty dreadful. I know the score doesn't dictate the tackling was dreadful. It was definitely not good. So I don't know if it was because it was cold. Generally that's one of the first things to go once it gets colder. Guys start to not want to wrap up as much, start to head higher. It's not going to be any warmer this weekend. Talk of snow on Friday. So that's something that the guys, I'm sure they addressed it in practice this week. That's part of the emotional intangibles of the game as well. They got to shore it up if they want to come out as successful as they've been in the past.
Yeah, and I'm kind of going to agree with Tom here. Something that they've done all year, the defense has got to do what they continue to do, and that's same thing with me every week. This is what I mention every week with that defense, but they've got to continue to force turnovers. We've got 38 turnovers this year so far, including 2 last week against Langsberg. And so it's really fueled the offense so far this year, and kind of why they've been able to put up so many points is because that defense gets the ball, turns the ball over, takes the ball away, and gives it that short field, something that makes it a lot easier to score, even though you've got such a high-powered offense. So I think it's getting a couple interceptions, a couple fumbles, and getting the ball into St. Charles territory.
Mm-hmm.
And then the X factor for this game. Who's your X factor?
My X factor is the players and the fans. I mean, Dave, you were there last week. No emotion from the players. There was no emotion from the fans. It was just kind of well, let's go out and play football again. We're going to win this one. It gets tougher. Each step of the way, it gets tougher. And you need the support of the fans. The team's got to be up for it. I got to believe that Coach Hesbrook will have these guys up. They're going to be emotionally ready for this game. The fans got to bring their part. I mean, we've supported these guys, but it was dead out there. It was dead last week. Ithaca's got to support these guys, cheer them on, just like we did all year long. It doesn't get any easier. If we want to go to Ford Field, they better start cheering them on, get them pumped up. And I think that's the X factor.
Yeah, frankly, I think in the last 2 weeks, they won 35-7, in week 9, 35-14 last week. They mailed in those games. There's no way around it. The fans did, the players did. They won. It sounded like a tennis match when I was there. Or something. It was quiet. It didn't feel like a playoff football atmosphere at all. I felt more atmosphere at other regular season games. Maybe that had something to do with the opponent. Maybe they were already looking forward to their hopeful run in the playoffs. But they got to have fire, And they are playing a St. Charles team that they have a history against. That hopefully they're going to get fired up for a conference rival. But it's something they need to work on if they want to make that playoff run that everybody thinks they can.
Yeah, well, to me, the X factor again. Talking earlier about the offensive line. I think the X factor is actually going to be Sam Reeves. I talked about the offensive line earlier. He's the leader down there. He's the center. He's a really fiery guy. He's emotional, which is a good thing. He's going to get the rest of the guys going with that, and I think he's going to be the X factor this game. And then, with all that, who wins?
As much as I said about the Yellow Jackets before and how I didn't think they had a lot of fire last week, I think that's over. I think those last 2 games are the last time that we're going to see any sort of mailing in at all from the team. I think the Jackets are going to come out pumped, excited, ready to go. Coach Hesbrook's going to have them ready. Alex Niznak is going to have just a stellar game. I think the Bulldogs are going to play a little bit better than they did in the regular season. I think they're going to be pumped up for postseason play as well. But I have Ithaca taking it 35-8.
They know it's going to be a different game than what was earlier in the year. They know it's going to be a different team. They know because they did it to St. Charles last year, so they know they can be susceptible to it too. St. Charles can come with a different game plan and be able to win the game, but I don't think that they do. I think Ithaca realizes that because of what happened last year and because of what's happened here down the stretch with a couple of their games not playing as well as they have, and maybe perhaps overlooking some teams. They definitely can't overlook St. Charles, or they will end up going home. But I think they win, and I think they win 38-7.
Well, as much as I'd like to see we have another running clock, I'm not going to jinx them. I'm going to give it 28-7. The Jackets move on to play the Feature Bucks or Montrose in the regional finals.
Well, there you have it. The Gurus have spoken for Gridiron Guru Plus Edition 8. I'm Dave Boucher, joined as always by publisher Tom McDonald and staff writer Curtis Wildfong. For all the latest highlights, updates, features and analysis, make sure you pick up a copy of next week's Gratiot County Herald. Thanks for joining us. Is it edition 7?
I don't know.
I think it is edition 7. Did I say edition 8?
Yeah.
Did I say edition 8 in the first?
Yeah,
first time?
yeah.
I did?
Uh-huh.